Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, continuing my mini-series about potential DLC for Total War Warhammer 2. As we've just finished discussing the potential updates to the Lizardmen roster in our previous video, I'd like to discuss the most likely counterpart to their update, the Skaven. As before, I'm trying to guess primarily at which legendary lords we'll see, along with any mechanics that they might bring to the table. Remember, if you've enjoyed this series, you should definitely smash the like button and consider subscribing. The first new legendary lord I suspect we'll see is Ikit Claw, a favorite of many and the chief warlock engineer of Clan Skryre. Though he should really be in Skaven Blight if Queek can be in the Southlands instead of near Carrick 8 Peaks, then there's no reason that Ikit Claw can't get the same treatment. And sure, there are many options that might make more sense, but Clan Skryre ties in closely to some missing units I'll discuss later in this video. Now, Ikit Claw isn't technically in command of Clan Skryre, so him not being at home, instead being off adventuring under orders from Morskatar or the Council of 13, makes perfect sense as far as I'm concerned. If that's what it takes to get Ikit Claw in the game, so be it. Ikit Claw is one of the most powerful sorcerers as far as the old world goes, but I'm not sure where he would stand against somebody like Mazdamundi per se. He has spent his whole life researching and studying all forms of magic, including spells and technology of men, elves, and dwarfs alike. Just decades prior to the Second Skaven Civil War, Ikit Claw spent a lot of time traveling through Cathay, Nagaroth, and Lustria, rifling through all kinds of tombs and crypts and stealing knowledge from wherever possible. After learning a great deal, Ikit Claw returned to Skaven Blight, where the Skaven lords were on the brink of civil war after a failed pestilence attempt on Bretonnians. Ikit Claw rushed to the side of Lord Morskatar, his lord, who was waiting at the Clan Skryre quarters, expecting the inevitable collapse. When Clan Pestilence attempted to take the council chambers, fighting erupted and spread across Skaven Blight. Ikit Claw, on Morskatar's orders, was sent leading the warlock engineers to take control of the temples and gave Morskatar control of Skaven Blight. Ikit Claw continues his mad experimentation, developing the Doomsphere atomic bomb by mistake and even trying to use it thrice. Thankfully for the rest of the world, he was stopped one way or another each time as he tried to nuke various dwarf holds. So, to call Ikit Claw crazy is an understatement and a compliment. He constantly tinkers and is the very inventor of the Doom Wheel, so we all have him to thank for that. He even made his own mask and claw to cover his wounds and even take advantage with the use of prosthetics. But above all, Ikit Claw just cares to bring mass destruction to the world. He would be perfectly happy with the entire Under Empire imploding as long as he was the one responsible. We might either get Ikit Claw as a Horde-style faction as he wanders around the world, hoping to learn from and destroy all he can, or we might find him with a home base somewhere in the Southlands as a part of his explorations. While the revealed factions on the map Creative Assembly have shown us includes the clan banner, we don't actually know where they start, so my guess now is Southlands or a Horde faction that goes exploring and destroying. I imagine, on the campaign map, we'll see reduced construction rates, faster research rates, and maybe reduced cost and time for making units like Doom Wheels. On the battlefield, we'll see a caster who can do decently in melee as well. He won't be a melee lord, but if the enemy gets close, Ikit Claw doesn't need to worry as much as a caster lord. I also want to see him come in with a slew of abilities based on his technological advances. Rocket launchers, grappling hooks, jetpacks, I don't know. Just pure madness, I want to see it. Quest items will probably include the Iron Frame, greatly increasing weapon damage, melee attack, and armor, maybe bringing magical damage into the mix as well, while sacrificing speed. Meanwhile, the Storm Demon will probably unlock Warp Lightning as a magic missile, while also adding some weapon strength, making Ikit Claw anti-large, armor-piercing with magical damage. Naturally, with the addition of Clan Skryre, I expect the inclusion of Warp-Lock Jezzails and the Rattling Guns. I expect the Jezzails to be extremely long-range sharpshooters, but with very low ammunition that deals a great deal of magical armor-piercing damage, potentially with the added benefit of causing fear and terror, or at least further reducing enemy leadership. These are Warpstone bullets we're talking about after all. These might appear as small units, think Iron Drakes, pairing up per weapon, and it'd be nice to see them have the stock ability to keep them hidden until the enemy is basically upon them. Maybe also give them the ability to hide while firing. The Rattling Guns, meanwhile, are more or less the opposite, spray and pray. I expect a slew of armor-piercing anti-large bullets to come spewing at a rapid pace, quickly finishing ammunition, and prone to some form of malfunction or other. Both will make a welcome addition to the Skaven roster, and I'd be very happy if we got Doomflares as chariots, especially with the Blood for the Blood God DLC active, and the Poison Wind Mortar would make a nice mobile artillery addition to the army as well, delivering poison artillery barrages. Thankful is the other legendary lord I suspect we'll see, and I certainly suspect we'll get an upgradable Bone Ripper with him, either like Skarsnik, Gobla, or as a summon like Krell. I'm hoping for the former, though the latter is probably more fitting. As one of the greatest Graciers of all time, Thankful is an excellent schemer, looking at every opportunity to manipulate and warp things in a way that gives him the upper hand, or sets him ahead in life, often at the expense of rivals and allies alike. He has been involved in all sorts of campaigns, saving the city of Hellpit, battling at Under Altdorf, and leading expeditions in Lustria. Unfortunately for Thankful, he has also been at the head of many almost success stories, and I think we're going to get a chance to give Thankful another kick at the can in the game. As a very popular rat, Thankful has quite the backstory, so brace yourselves for a bit of storytelling as I try my best to summarize his past. As far as his origins are concerned, few know the details of his early years, only that he was born with grey fur and the slightest hint of horns growing from his head. Whether that designates him as some sort of prophet of the Horned Rat is unknown, but of course, the priesthood and the council were quick to take the child from his former clan and prepare him for his life as a Gracier. As an apprentice under Gracier Sleekit, Thankful grew disdain for his competitor apprentices and, like any good Skaven, his direct superior as well. And so, one day, he stole Sleekit's magical talisman, scurried off into the distance, and watched his master get crushed by rocks before taking the master's staff and becoming the new Gracier of the Order. Thankful served the council as faithfully as Skaven can. He became known as one of the most powerful sorcerers of the Under Empire, and he was said to be an extremely cunning commander, having won many victories for the Ratmen. It was these victories that saw him rewarded with the Rat Ogre bodyguard, whose position came to be called Bone Ripper over time. Alongside this reward, Thankful was given orders to go to Nuln and incite a civil war between Altdorf and Nuln. Using a relatively long campaign of subterfuge, Thankful would have been successful if it had not been for the presence of Gotrek and Felix. Their initial presence meant Thankful's sneaky plans may have been found out, and so he had to react with some aggression that was quickly shut down when his storm vermin were slaughtered by the pair when stalking after the sewer watch that might otherwise have foiled Thankful's plans. With these failings, Thankful had to get involved more directly with the local political puppet he was using to enact the civil war, and in doing so, he was able to collect information that would help him take care of the pair of adventurers that were disturbing his plans, while also removing the sewer watch from the picture, more or less. Unfortunately, Gotrek and Felix seemed 2 steps ahead of him and were nowhere to be found despite the information they were given about their whereabouts. When he returned to speak to their informer puppet, Thankful met the dwarf as he looked to foil Thankful's plans once and for all. Sending his bodyguard Bone Ripper into the fray, he expected the dwarf would be quickly taken care of. Unfortunately, Bone Ripper's head was cut in half instead, and Thankful was forced to retreat. Over the next few days, Thankful had to brace himself for sharing the news of his failings with his superiors over what can only be described as Skaven Skype, the Far Squeaker. While he was afraid that his failure would result in harsh punishment, fortune seemed to favor him somewhat, as the plans for Nuln had changed. There was now to be a full-scale invasion, and Thankful was to relinquish command of the operation to help Warlord Vermek Scab as Supreme Commander. At this point, the Far Squeaker began to rumble and rattle and was preparing to explode, but before it did, Thankful was told of a man and a dwarf whose destinies seemed to be intertwined with him. And with that, the Far Squeaker exploded, and Thankful, feeling slighted for having to relinquish command, also felt a hint of fear. He ordered his rats to summon the Gutter Runners and kill the pair who, as far as Thankful was concerned, were prophesied to kill him or at least foil his plans. Unfortunately, despite using some of the most prolific assassins for the task, they all failed to kill the targeted dwarf and man, and the pair remained a headache for Thankful even as news came to him of the mysterious death of Warlord Scab, a death that meant Thankful was now directly in charge of the invasion himself. Many were unhappy by this shift in power, but when Thankful threatened to involve the council in the debate, the naysayers were silenced and Thankful assumed command. Despite his role as commander, there was, as there tends to be, a fair bit of dissonance among the rats. Not once or twice, but 3 times were their plans made to betray Thankful. The first time was by Clan Scryer's Heskett One-Eye, who was hoping to attack the Engineers' College to gather more trinkets. The second time by Clan Pestilence, who were hoping to spread plague to the city, a plague that might backfire, and finally, Clan Molder was pushing in, led by Isaac Grottle, bringing a weapon that would level the city and steal Thankful's potential glory. Each time Thankful leaked information to Gotrek and Felix and let the pair intercept the traitors, foiling their plots, though they were all able to escape. So there you have it. Thankful doesn't mind working with dwarfs and man-things if it means killing off the competition. At this point, plague gripped Thanquol's horde, and many rats began to join the camp, draining it of vital resources. So Thanquol's hand was forced, and he assembled the few thousand warriors still able to fight and rushed into the city in the dead of night, hoping to catch it off guard. Leading a small unit himself, Thanquol teleported himself and his warriors into the palace of the Elector Countess to take care of her directly. Unfortunately for Thanquol, his treasonous conversations with Gotrek and Felix had become known to the very people he used them to target, and so they decided to give Thanquol a taste of his own medicine, notifying the pair of his plans in an attempt to remove Thanquol from the picture once and for all. Thanquol's plan was completely ruined, and worse, the Council's plans were foiled. Though Thanquol managed to escape, he once more had to explain his losses to his superiors, losses of food and wealth at a great scale. Fortunately for him, Clan Scab was planning a rebellion against the Council at the time, and Seer Lord Crystalic helped pin some of the blame on them to save Thanquol, as they were a large contributing factor in the invasion. Thanquol still fell from grace, and he returned to hiding as his influence and notoriety was in shambles. Soon, however, Thanquol got a chance at redemption as he received word of a dwarf force mobilizing towards a relatively useless tract of land. In a bid to intercept them, Thanquol secretly gathered what little wealth and influence remained to him and pushed forward without notifying his superiors, hoping to regain their favor. Hiring a local clan to assist him in his exploits, Thanquol was shocked and terrified upon seeing Felix there, but decided to push forward with an assault anyway, a push that failed and saw the second Bone Ripper die as a result of eating a grenade. It was a long and hard battle to be sure, but the dwarfs fought well against an army that was better equipped and larger, and the dwarfs were also assisted by an air force that dropped bombs into the Skaven horde, shattering their will to fight and forcing them back. Once more, Thanquol tasted defeat. Despite this, Thanquol persisted and mind-controlled one of his underlings to go digging behind enemy lines, uncovering a massive airship. This discovery led to two things. For one, Thanquol now wanted to have an airship of his own, and perhaps more importantly, he was able to tell that the invading force was pushing towards Kislev, near Clan Moulder and the city of Hellpit, which were likely targets for the invading force. Hastily, Thanquol reached out to Clan Moulder as he chased after the airship floating towards its final destination. Preparing an army of several hundred storm vermin, Thanquol was able to take at least one outpost before needing to plot an ambush to see success against the larger mobilized force. Unfortunately, his methods were far from subtle, and taking the first outpost alerted Gotrek, Felix, and Snorri Nosebitter, another Slayer. When the ambush began, the Skaven forces fought against an onslaught of humans and dwarves, but Thanquol was focused on the airship, unable to help his warriors as he used his magic to capture the massive war machine. Distracted by his thrall at one point, Thanquol began to lose his grip until ultimately lines broke and Thanquol himself was being charged at. At the same time, an Imperial wizard on the other side of the field worked to counter Thanquol's magic, and Thanquol lost control of his spell. At this point, he came to realize the situation at hand and fled via teleportation alongside Lurk Snitchtongue. Lurk Snitchtongue was a servant of Thanquol's, bringing him news of the traitorous clans back in Nuln, helping him learn about the airship, but he was also the rat that helped foil Thanquol's plans in Nuln, though to be fair, he was bullied into it. At this point in time, however, Lurk no longer looked like the scrawny little rat he was. Lurk had grown to the size of a rat ogre, and he now had a massive set of horns and a giant spiked tail. Thanquol first thought this was the horned rat coming personally to deliver punishment, but on finding out it was just Lurk, he decided to continue on his journey, weak as he was, in the hopes of returning to Skaven territory. Traveling north, the pair grew bitter toward each other, and Thanquol was at least somewhat concerned that his once scrawny servant Lurk might eat him. This was all set aside when they were intercepted by outriders of a large invasion force coming in from the north. Chaos Knights surrounded the pair and would have slaughtered them too had it not been for Thanquol's quick wit, brokering a deal between these invaders and the Council of 13, claiming to be a representative sent forth by the Council. Thanquol was able to earn safe escort to the camp of the invaders, and after a conversation with their warlord, safe escort to the city of Hellpit, where he brought news of the inbound forces of Chaos. Here, Lurk was taken away to be experimented upon by Clan Moulder, while Thanquol found himself a prisoner of the clan. While Thanquol awaited his freedom and contemplated escape, Lurk decided he did not want to be a captive any longer and broke free of his chains, instigating a rebellion in Hellpit by assembling an army of the weak and needy. This rebellion nearly toppled Clan Moulder, and they were forced to turn to Thanquol's magic to find Lurk in an attempt to end him and the rebellion. When Clan Moulder began to respond with information from Thanquol, Lurk quickly realized his rebellion was a failure, and he retreated from the city, parting ways with his once master Thanquol. At this point, Thanquol was sent out with a large force of clan rats and storm vermin numbering in the several thousands in the hopes of spying on the Chaos Invaders that he had mentioned earlier. From the safety of his camp, using his magical capabilities, Thanquol saw as the Battle of Prague unfolded and a seemingly endless stream of Chaos Warriors threw themselves at the city. He saw them enter the city, he saw death and destruction, but he also saw Gotrek and Felix. At this point, Thanquol was notified that there was a massive Chaos force moving in to strike the Skaven camp, and he had to pull himself out of his trance. As the Warriors of Chaos struck the Skaven, Thanquol's magical prowess emboldened the Warriors of Clan Moulder, helping them stand their ground. After only a few hours of fighting, the enemy decided to retreat, and Thanquol was given many honors and rewards. Fearing some form of conniving, Thanquol declined these offers and instead simply asked for a small token of gratitude and made leave for Skavenblight. Naturally, Thanquol expected at least somewhat of a hero's welcome. He had thwarted a chaos attack and quelled a rebellion, but no. Instead, he was told off for failing to capture the airship, failing to report the Chaos invasion to the Council, and also for being responsible for the Hell Pit Rebellion. And so, he was thrown into the maze of merciless penance, a maze designed to test if the Horned Rat still favored him. Using his cunning, as always, Thanquol passed the test and was once more welcomed by the Council, only because they needed him for another difficult task. And so Thanquol was sent to Under Altdorf in an attempt to obtain an artifact that had been long lost. Once there, Thanquol sought audience with the Under Altdorf Council, and during this audience, the Council broke into a bickering mob of rats while Grayseer Thratkey eyed Thanquol. The two later spoke of business. Thanquol learned that the artifact he was sent to obtain was a great weapon known as the Wormstone, but he was also asked to help Thratkey in a plot to become the Seer Lord of Skavenblight in return for rewards and titles. Thanquol was no fool, so he made a false promise to the Grayseer to help. The first expedition to obtain the Wormstone ended in failure. Betrayal amidst the ranks was one factor, but so too was the giant rat-shaped beast that assaulted them. Returning to Under Altdorf with news of failure, Thanquol used the assassination attempt to pit clan against clan, and each clan in turn tried to show Thanquol their loyalty with gifts of wealth. Using this cleverly earned wealth, Thanquol purchased a new Rat Ogre, the new Bone Ripper, this time with a third arm. Then came the second attempt at finding the Wormstone, which, turns out, was tucked away in a tavern. Through a battle that saw Bone Ripper finally be useful in saving Thanquol's life, the Grayseer was able to obtain the weapon and return to Under Altdorf. Unfortunately, at that time, it became clear that Thanquol had been betrayed once more, and he had to go into hiding, seeking vengeance on all of Under Altdorf for the way they treated him. And so it was that Thanquol decided to use the Wormstone as a weapon against the entire city. The Wormstone was extremely dangerous to anything infused with chaos, such as Skaven, and while in hiding, Thanquol had his rats crumble the stone to dust and put it into bottles so they could be carried to a nearby reservoir and dumped there. As this plan came to completion, a huge battle erupted by the reservoir. Thanquol's host had to fight Imperial forces and the forces of Clan Pestilence as well, facing off against Lord Skrolk himself. Bone Ripper proved himself useful in keeping Thanquol safe once more before being killed by the Plague Lord, but ultimately, Thanquol was able to successfully poison the waters. Naturally, this story can't have a happy ending either, and a dwarf suicide bomber decided to blow a hole in the side of the reservoir, draining the water into the depths of the world, making all of Thanquol's efforts in vain. With another failure added to his growing list, Thanquol teleported out of danger and ended up at some crazy cat lady's house, where he ate the lady and probably her cats too, before making his way to Skavenblight. Once more returning as a failure, Thanquol counted himself lucky to still have some favor with the Council. They were glad that the Wormstone was lost, rather than in the hands of Clan Pestilence, and when Thanquol pointed out that the Under Altdorf Grayseer Thratkey orchestrated Thanquol's failure, they congratulated him on his successes and gave him more control of Under Altdorf. Thanquol, meanwhile, was sent off to Lustria to kill the Prophet of Sotek at Ketsa. This is where I think the game will pick up, giving us control of Thanquol and his rats on the lush continent of Lustria. In fact, Thanquol will likely be the Skaven representative on the title of the DLC, something like The Prophet and the Seer, or The Prophet and the Rat That Can't Catch a Break. With the player in control of Thanquol, hopefully we'll see some success though. I imagine the Lustrian starting position will be at odds with the Prophet's start in the Southlands. This will help broaden the scope of the campaign, though it is possible that both start on Lustria instead. I imagine Thanquol would like to subjugate all the Skaven clans, given the past betrayals, and I'd like to see his main objective be to destroy the Lizardmen and Skaven both. If he is tied in with the Vortex as well, there's no reason for him not to be aligned with other Skaven clans looking to disrupt it. I'd love to see Bone Ripper come in as either a mount option or a battlefield buddy like Gobla or Krell. Krell style would make the most sense in my opinion, as the Bone Ripper du jour has a tendency to die and be replaced by the work of Clan Scryer and Clan Mulder. Alternatively, Bone Ripper has to be recruited as a special unit or shows up as an army ability, able to dive in to rescue Thanquol when necessary. I would also like to see each rendition of Bone Ripper have slightly different stats, potentially be suitable for different uses, so at times, we might opt to let one Bone Ripper die to be replaced by a better one. While it's likely we won't see such special treatment, it would definitely be a fun way to bring Bone Ripper to life. Thanquol himself will likely be middling in melee, but have a powerful slew of spells alongside Winds of Magic boosting capabilities. I'd like to see him have a Scroll of Escape, allowing him to teleport out of a dangerous situation at least once in a battle. Alternatively, he'd be able to target a unit to teleport them to a different place on the battlefield instead, or we might see it on the campaign map as a means to escape dangerous situations. His melee capabilities will be represented by Bone Ripper, and this would further help to illustrate the bodyguard role that the Rat Ogre fills. I suspect Thanquol will come in on foot and on a palanquin, but no mount options beyond that. Who do you think we're likely to see with the Skaven roster update? There's plenty of options here, but the two I've discussed seem to me to be the most interesting or obvious choices. What regiments of renown do you think we'll see? Think I missed an important detail? Let me know in the comments below. And, as always, I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you'd like more Total War content, make sure you subscribe to this channel for an endless flow of battles, let's plays, news, and constant speculation.